Like the first thing to start with is just how profound it's going to be. I don't think people are quite cottoned on to, or they quite understand just the size of the opportunity. So if I go and pitch this to customers, I always try and put it in some sort of context for them, and we
Yes.
have a little story and stuff I can play. But for you, this is where it gets interesting. We'll try and work away a summary. I'm not a content writer. I'm not a
Yes.
graphical artist. I'm not a coder, and I'm not a website designer. But I can use AI and I can use prompts.
Mm. Mm.
So the first prompt I put into when I was told about this meeting was create me a magazine named at insurance professionals. That's 5 articles talking about current insurance trends.
Yeah.
And that's all I typed into ChatGPT. And it gave me a description of the quarterly. It called it Insurance Insight. Might need some work on the title.
Yeah.
But this is what it did, right? So it gave me the digital revolution, transforming insurance in the 21st century. The second one topic, navigating the regulatory landscape, a global perspective. The third one it gave me was something about climate change. Personalized products was the fourth one, the rise of tailored insurance products. And then finally it was cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So straight away,
And
just by using AI and prompts, it's created me the magazine. Then I'm like, oh, that's cool.
mm.
Second prompt I put into DALI. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it, never tried it. Yeah.
So the first prompt gave me a dynamic visual of interconnected gears symbolizing the complexity. You type that into DALI, it gives you the design. So that was kind of cool as well.
Mm.
My third prompt was give me the code to create a website from the above. And it gave me a code to create the website. And then lastly, the fourth prompt was how do I promote this? What are the most effective channels to promote my my magazine?
Yeah.
And it did all that for me in 20 seconds from start to finish.
Yeah.
So, I'm not a content writer, not a graphical answer, not a coder, I'm not a website designer, but I can do all that in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
then if you kind of take that, maybe I should send you the prompts and I'll send you what the results were as well, just for interest. But you take that concept and you go, right, in the insurance world, well, I'm not an underwriter. I'm not a pricing expert. I can't take a technical price and create a product from it. I can't write the product descriptions or the policy documents. I can't work out what share to give to reinsurers for what value. I'm definitely not an experienced claim handler. And I definitely don't have the knowledge to answer the volume or variety of these kind of customer queries and complaints and questions that they have. But I can use AI and I can use prompts. And those two stories just kind of set the scene for just how profound this change could be. And I find that fascinating. And like I said, we've been going around, we talk to insurers, we talk about what we're working on. I'll explain some of that in a minute. And all of a sudden, you're kind of seeing these people rock back of it and go, oh, right, this changes a lot. If I take any of those things, like one of the biggest areas of the program that we do when we're doing the policy administration or we're doing the digital transformation of an organization is all this kind of policy document and the descriptions and the coverage and then what they have to write. And you're literally now putting this into ChatGPT and it's coming out better than I could write it, better than most people could write it in seconds. So it's just profound, absolutely profound. And we did a survey a couple of, that was it last month with one of the English publications saying, where do you think? We interviewed about 60 insurance professionals at a relatively senior level. What's the impact of this? And they go, AI insurance, well, claims, fraud, underwriting, customer support, it goes everywhere. And the use case is pretty much as broad as your imagination. That's where it gets a little bit exciting because it really is. And going back to your point, evolution, not revolution, I suppose you describe it.
Yeah.
We do a lot of this already. So a lot of the things that we're describing or I've described to you, it happens in one format or the other, using combinations of machine learning, AI. These kind of terms have become almost interchangeable.
Yeah.
So the definitions, I think, are quite clear, or need to be quite clear. Whether, you know, artificial intelligence, which is, you know, this technique that allows the machine or the computer to mimic human behavior, outthink them, outsmart them, whatever you want to call it. And then you have kind of machine learning, which is where we mainly are at the moment, which is like a subset of artificial intelligence, where we're using a number of statistical models and methods that enables the machine to calculate and improve those calculations with experience.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I say, they're currently kind of interchangeable at the moment. There's you know, everyone's putting AI in front of everything, but they probably mean machine learning 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. AI is sort of almost like talking about a computer, but yeah, it's now just what it is, you know. Yeah.
So the use cases, well, again, you're just going back, it's as broad as your imagination. And a lot of them have become more proven. So, you know, for customers, you know, this next product to buy, the upsell opportunities. We're seeing lots of use cases around price re-engineering. You know, there's kind of number of ways you can do it. You can absorb more data points, and, you know, run better pricing, gives you a bit more pricing differentiation. And then a lot of the stuff we're seeing as well is re-engineering competitors' pricing. So looking at how they're doing it. And fraud, well, everyone just talks about fraud anyway, but that's pretty sophisticated already.
Yeah.
Then a lot more of the kind of softer skills, or, you know, using the machine to try and not just identify who's going to buy you the next product, but the kind of churn management side of it. You know, segmenting customers so you understand who's likely to churn and why. And then from that, you understand who wants communicating and when. And then more importantly, which is a new one, is just, you know, the segment of customers that are happy with you, just leave alone, don't communicate with them. And then you're right through to underwriting, just by having, you know, larger and larger data sets that don't necessarily have to be structured. And then, you know, a lot of work going into AI recognition of damage and the use of kind of photo recognition software or video recognition software that you're able to, you know, make an evaluation of the damage cost to, you know, a car or a house or something. And then once you know what the cost is, you know how to fit it into the supply chain, you know how to fit it into reserving, all that kind of stuff, and that becomes a lot more automated. And then from the finance world, you know, there's a subset of this which is looking at HR analytics as well. So trying to predict the employees that are best, you know, likely to be promoted or retained, or the employees that are trying to, you know, or at risk of leaving. So it literally does touch every part of the insurance value chain.
But I mean, that leaves you with a bit of a, it's like you've mentioned all of these things as a small underwriter, UMA in South African terms. Where does this leave you in terms of, like, it's almost overwhelming as to, okay, so which of all of these things do I tackle, and how much do I, you know, what do I start with and where?
So the simple answer to that is, I don't know. Which is, you know, not the best example for a magazine article or an interview or anything like that, for sure. But what we're trying to do, so we're working with Microsoft, and, you know, what we're trying to do is get down to, you know, 1 or 2 use cases as quickly as we possibly can. And once it's proven, and you have it proven in one scenario, you're able to adapt it to other scenarios very, very quickly. You know, like we talked about, this is the one case we have worked on very, very, you know, successfully. If you think about, you know, a claim, so you can take a claim from any source, whether it's a call, a chatbot, an email, a web form, and we're currently able to absorb all that data and guide the customer through the process. So if you think about all the different claims you can have and all the different formats you could submit a claim, there's, you know, many thousands of possible paths for that claim to go into the organization, depending on its type and its complexity, and then the insurer's workflows as well. I call it, like, you know, Harry Potter. Everyone understands what Harry Potter is. It's like a sorting hat. Comes in, and, you know, we feed this data into the sorting hat, and then we can analyze all the different routes that claim can take, and use the machine learning to say, hey, straight through processing, automatic payment, or we need to refer this one, or we automatically need to go back to the customer and say, we need additional data from you. So that kind of process is all based around trigger points and business rules. And then what these kind of artificial intelligence is doing with these large language models is you're taking that process, which is structured, there's steps, there's rules, there's logic at every bit, and makes it less rule based. And it's processing pretty much everything at once. And that's where it gets exciting. And then if you are a small underwriter in South Africa, well, you're not small, you're in South Africa, they're big. It gets really, really exciting, because then you can start to think about where the most appropriate place in the business is to start putting this into. And I don't think, we'll come on to this in a minute because of the cost side of it, so that's the elephant in the room. But our approach was, as a proof of concept, and we demoed this at our user conference we had in Barcelona towards the end of April or May last year. And I can't say this word for the life of me, and I think that's why we picked it. The Fukushima nuclear disaster.
Yes, yeah.
And we believe that's the most complex insurance claim in history. There's like 800 documents produced that tells the insured, are they covered? How do I claim? Is it going to be from the insurer or government agency, etc., etc. Good luck reading that kind of volume and coming to a conclusion. But we were able to upload all of the documentation surrounding that, and then you're just able to interrogate it and ask it questions. Am I covered for? And it's quite astonishing to see the machine read that, come to the conclusion that would take you or I months to read it, months to understand it. And you're able to start kind of extracting these kind of data points in real time now. And I think it's stunning. The other one we did was like wildfire damage. Pretending you're a small business, am I covered for smoke pollution? Most policies will exclude this. You need some sort of specialist environmental cover. And obviously you're able to interrogate your policy document and the rest of it, just ask it a quick question like that. And then you're told no. And then the machine's going to sit there and go, well, actually, if you're told no, we can actually recommend you that you add this cover to your future policies as well. So you're completing that loop. And the technology is going to be ubiquitous. So as much as the large companies are going to benefit from this, they're going to do it first. The small companies are going to have access to the same toolkit. And that's an interesting point as well. It's not going to be just for the big boys, because anyone can use it. We're a year into this as well, aren't we?
And as little as that, and this is where we are. I think that's the amazing part, is how exponentially fast this growth is.
And like I say, go back to that story I told you about the claims and the sorting hat.
Yeah.
Well, that's really, really strong. We're straight through processing, 80% of small claims now, where no one's touching it, using our existing capabilities. And with these kind of like artificial intelligence, you've got to make that 10% that it can take you really valuable. And I think the insurers at the moment are starting to think about it, but they haven't quite got into their heads quite how profound this change could be. Like the story I told you about the magazine publication. That it's going to cover a lot. But there are going to be some things on the way that will slow us down. Attitude's one of them. I think, you're just looking at history. There were 3 companies in the US. I always like using the US as examples because it's the biggest insurance market. They all speak the same language. You had Hippo, Lemonade, and Root. And they promised that they were going to use machine learning, AI, and the greatest analytics from the ground up. They promised us they were going to redefine insurance using smarter underwriting, machine learning, the rest of it. Their performance is the same as a traditional insurance company.
Yeah,
and that's reflected in their in their share price as well, which is like pretty much all of them have fallen from 90% loss of value of the organization.
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
kind of like a little bit of skepticism in the insurance industry about, this is going to be complex, and we've seen people come to us and promise this before, and look at the results of it. Hippo's loss ratio, they're really proud they got it down from 161% to 110.
Yeah. Still a loss ratio.
Yeah, Lemonade were this, similar story. Their claims ratio remains stubbornly the same as, a traditional insurance company.
Mm.
And rather than, revolutionizing the industry, they now partner with traditional insurers.
Mm.
And then Root are using a lot of AI-based telematics scoring and driver scoring instead of, the traditional way of scoring based on credit in the US. Well, guess now what they're doing, and they've gone back to using the same pricing methodology as every other insurer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got that kind of like that balance where it's like the opportunity is as broad as your imagination. We've seen this before, and we're not quite convinced it's worked because the companies that have kind of gone full tilt into it haven't had the results that improve them. And then the final one is just this leap of faith. I go back to the States again. We'll make some of this relevant for the South African market, but one of the largest companies, State Farm, I think they're 15-16% of the entire US auto insurance market and 17% of the homeowners market, right? So they're big. 85 million policies, they're as big as South Africa.
Yeah.
And they've got access to all these tools. But what does it actually take to support that? Well, it's 58,000 employees and 20,000 agents and office staff and 1.2 billion in advertising every year. So you've got this kind of juxtaposition where you're looking at AI and machine learning and saying, hey, it's going to promise the world. And then you've got what's actually going on around us. And just how that is going to be, much smaller incremental steps. So at the
But
macro
I mean,
level, AI is going to solve all the problems, but the reality is, it's going to be somewhere in the middle and a series of much smaller incremental steps.
Yes, but I mean, the bottom line is that if you're not part of that, you won't be able to compete. You have to take that route. So however you do it now, and however sort of basic you can, let's say you're in South African terms, a medium-sized player, and you're managing reasonably well in the current environment with the basic technology stack, etc. In the future, you're not going to be able to do that, because they're just going to be exponentially further than you if you have old style technology stacks.
Yeah, the technology stack. So let's go through this. So logically, have you've got Hippo over there, like a price comparison website.
Yeah.
And over here, it's like 1/3, 25% of the market for home and car. That's the channel. You go into price comparison websites. They were created by a South African company, but we got the benefit over here. And you fill in a questionnaire, and you get 100 different quotes from 100 different brokers and 100 different insurers just by filling in the form once. You get, and I swear to God, the prices from those 100 different places are like 2,000 rand within each other. Least expensive to most expensive.
Yeah.
You're talking like a less than 10% spread in price covering the top 50.
Yeah.
And you go, all right, so why is that? Well, everyone's using the same kind of pricing software from Willis Towers Watson or Ernix, and they're largely using the same data sets, and they're obviously watching each other like a hawk and reacting to the movements. If I stick AI into that, the natural conclusion is those 100 quotes are going to be exactly the same price, because all the data, all the logic, all the power of the AI maths, one AI is not going to get better than another. By definition, it can't be. It's AI. So it's going to iterate and improve itself, and I can't quite get my head around that.
Yeah. It's going to keep on trying to find that equilibrium between all of them. Yeah.
So what we're doing with customers, this regardless of size, we work on multi-tenant. Our software is multi-tenant, so it has all the customers on it one way or the other. And what we're able to say is, look, we're trying to understand, the market capabilities, and we're trying to understand the most valuable use cases. And like pretty much every tech company, we've pivoted and we're focused on this now. And we're working with Microsoft and a couple of other organizations. We're going to uncover one or two of these kind of valuable use cases, and then we'll bring it into the demonstration environment, as soon as we possibly can. And like anything new, the devil's going to be in the detail. I can talk to you about that in a minute. But there's no reason why, using that kind of multi-tenant approach, the biggest company is going to have an advantage over a small company, because we want to be able to give all our customers the kind of capacity when we figure out exactly where the best place to point it is at. So what we're doing with the customers now is, just trying to encourage them to think about, their data models and how they retain data, how long for, all the kind of compliance side of it. And let's build this digital twin of the world around us. One thing we do know about our customers is, they're working with some of the most compliant data sets in the world when you think about the regulation that goes into this. So insurance is already this massive, consumer of compliant data. So if we get this kind of, if we know, right, our stepping stones to using AI and insurance effectively is going to be building this digital twin of the physical world around us. Everything you can know about the person, the business, the asset, the building, the location, all those kind of, environment and physical attributes around, how they all interact with this, it's all there for us. So we just need to make sure that we're thinking about this long term now. Having this kind of 360 record of the consumer, the business, the director, the claim, when claims are made, all of the associated evidence and management. And now, once we've got that, you're able to start using the use cases. So risk modeling, using AI, we can redefine them. We can make the predictiveness of the model a lot sharper. This kind of data utilization in the underwriting and claims will enrich it. We're able to use the new technologies, aggregate greater data sources to enrich it. I think there's a massive opportunity in managerial reporting as well, not just presenting the data, but looking across, broader, looking at, bigger and unstructured data sets and expanding that out, and not just telling them or presenting them with a lovely report. It's actually, here's the actions you should take. And then the AI is probably going to be able to solve the actions they should be taking as well long term. But there's that kind of level of business reporting, I think, is going to transform itself, where you're not just getting the intelligence, you're actually getting recommendations of what to do with the intelligence. This particular segment of customers and this particular location are a problem. Here's how to probably prevent collisions from happening, whatever it may be. And then this natural evolution of automation processes. We're constantly improving this anyway, using combinations of the machine learning models we know about already, and we have some proprietary software around decision modeling as well. That's just constantly improving in two ways: whether we can automatically process the payment and the claim to the consumer or the business or the supplier, the persons that come out, doing the remedial work. How can we do more and more of that across, larger claims? So, more complex claims. How do we automate more and more of that? Or how do we guide the claim handler through it using, natural language programming? Here's the recommended set of actions you should take because of. So I made that joke about the magazine at the start. I could never do that by myself, same way as I could never be a claims handler by myself. But you're able to take that kind of knowledge that a claims handler with 30 years experience has in their head and make that accessible to everybody. And what was that? That was 4 use cases I gave you that, all of them are going to be impacted in some degree, or impacted. They're going to grow to some degree. There's 4 really big opportunities there. Everything's so. Go back to the small. Let's go back to the kind of, how do you can look at Allstate compared to a smaller insurance company in South Africa, or even the smallest one in South Africa. And the elephant in the room is the cost.
Yeah.
Like us that are looking at this all the time and working with Microsoft and the other organizations we're working with, oh my God, the cost is eye-watering. I think Forbes did one recently. I'll try and find it for you. And it was reported by them saying, right, if you want to train a chat GPT, I can never say it properly either, model on your own exclusive data set, you're probably talking somewhere in the region between 20 and 40 million rand. And you're like, wow, okay, that's that's going to kind of make it interesting for us, isn't it? Because there's a lot of money to invest in R&D just to experiment on something like that. And if you look at just ChatGPT by itself, it's what's that, 13 million rand a day to run, just to keep the kind of chatbot up and running. So these costs are eye-watering and they're mind-boggling. And we don't really know the full cost of it yet. But what we do know is the cost will come down as the technology matures. The benefits, the ROI, the payback will become a lot clearer. And we also know that when we demo it, it's cool as hell. So it's really, really interesting. And then for the smaller organization, well, there's going to be hundreds of insurtechs that are forming at the moment. And, they'll see this and see the cost. We work with a number of them, that they're partners of ours, that do, niche technology that we wouldn't develop centrally. They're forming and they'll figure that costing out. They'll figure out the ways of doing it. And then we have a couple of clients. I think this is an important message as well. We've got a couple of clients that are 100% digital only insurers. Whether they're selling, just 100% online, or they're doing micro insurance policies. And they'll apply it first, and we'll learn from it, because they'll be the ones that they don't have massive call centers already, so it's easy for them to start putting this technology in and figuring out how to do it. So those kind of 4 or 5 points will happen, and then it will get really, really interesting for the bulk of the insurance market. It'll be around choice. It'll be about regulation. It'll be about how they want to manage themselves. Do they really want to replace their call center? It's feasible. Or do they want to give customers the choice? And do they really want to let the customer just like interrogate a website or an application and get everything they need from it? Or do they still want that human touch in it somewhere? And that will depend a lot about the demographics of the customers they're selling to. There'll be a lot of hybrid approaches to that.
Just in terms of the costing that you're talking about, when you spoke about putting your own data into a model like that, do you think it will go onto a sort of a subscription model, pay as you like a pass service?
Yeah, you've got a couple of things. You've got your virtual machines, all the kind of hardware costs that the cloud providers and ourselves, we can probably take care of an element of that. And then you see a lot of these kind of subscriptions. So the cost of, let's say, the cloud provider that has the tech stack sitting behind all of this, you're getting charged 30 cents a hit or a query or something like that. So that would naturally lead itself to those kind of models where you're pay per use. But there will be, I'd imagine, a sort of level of subscription cost to these as well to fund the setup and the development of it. It's very early days yet. Like I say, it's not quite a year, is it? 11 months since OpenAI landed ChatGPT. None of us saw it coming. Is the other thing. We knew there's all this kind of work going on, but we didn't really expect to see how quickly it would be captured in the public psyche and the rest of it.
Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest surprise as to how quickly it took hold.
Yep. What are they pointing at is the other thing. It's kind of this, AGI, I think they call it.
Yes,
Artificial
I read
general
up about
insurance.
that.
Yeah. intelligence. So,
Yeah.
this hypothetical world where the agent or the chatbot, whatever you want to call it, is as smarter than me, or smarter than the person. It can
Yeah.
do any task that I could do faster, quicker, better.
Yes.
So
Yes. No.
surpasses my mental capacity anyway.
Yeah. I read an article yesterday from the one of the guys from OpenAI, where he was saying that the artificial intelligence will sort of treat us as animals, as we treat animals, as not hating us, but making a clinical decision as to when are we in the way, and
Yeah.
yeah. Which makes sense, I mean, that's how we work with animals. We try and treat them humanely, but when we're hungry, we eat them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating environment, but yeah, I think
If you look, all right, so the OpenAI has been going for a decade pretty much. So it's not like it's they've been working on this for a long time, and I think they announced in 2020 they were going to do it, but they still did it, and we all forgot about it, and then it got launched this last year. So you got Chat GPT, text in, text out, and all the kind of knowledge that came out of that. You've got DALL-E on the image recognition and generation side of it, where you just free text, you just type into the generator, I want an image of this in the style of Picasso, it will do it for me. It's fascinating. And then you've got the third component of that, which is the OpenAI's Codex, GitHub, Copilot, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember the title of it. We'll need to look that up. But that's using AI in the development and coding. Like that funny example is ultimately my natural language, how I write into code. And we talk about exponential growth. I have no doubt that they've figured out how to use all three of these and write new product service ideas already. And they've cracked how to use AI to, iterate, design, code, and ship product. And the kind of speed, even in the past 12 months, it is mind-boggling. I'm not that old, but have you ever seen the velocity of innovation from an entire industry? No. Have you ever seen that kind of velocity from a single firm that launched its key product 9 months ago? Nope.
Yeah.
So if you think about AI as building AI along with AI applications, this is probably just the start of an entirely new way of doing everything. And we'll, where I probably, would want us to get to as Sapiens is this kind of collaborative approach of our customers. It might be too big for one large customer to do by themselves. They want the ideas from the smaller ones and vice versa. So it will give us some sort of collaboration on the technology side of it. So
yeah, I mean, that would be an interesting one. I think for a next conversation, most probably. You alluded to it in the beginning as well, about, you sort of almost, with everybody using those tools, getting to almost like a anti-competitive environment, where nobody can create a competitive advantage, because the AI just scales everybody's advantage to a level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the long term. That's the bit I can't get my head around now, because I've worked through the rest of it. We know the use cases. Everyone knows the use cases. But it's that kind of natural conclusion to this, which is, the computer ain't going to outcompute itself. It's going to, what do you do? Can't quite get my head around that. We've got a long way to go. And when we're talking to the insurance companies themselves at the moment, I think this is really, really important. They understand how much we can automate, how much more data we're ingesting at the moment using our current capacities and toolkits, and it's really, really good. If I'm going to spend $1 million setting up AI inside my organizations to give me that kind of 1% improvement on my models, at the moment, for the next couple of years, I don't think you need to do that. I don't think people are going to kind of go, rushing into this. And when we talk to the insurance companies, hey, wow, we're interested, but believe me, this isn't the first thing they're asking about. So we've all gone through this hype cycle, and there's a couple of reasons for this. You've got the shortage of qualified talent, number one. There's not that many people out there that understand this properly at the moment. We all understand use cases. We don't understand how to do it. We don't understand the time it takes to deploy these projects. We don't fully understand the kind of environment we need to put in, the governance, the ethical considerations around AI, which is why we're lucky, because we can use Microsoft to do this, and we can understand it. And there's an element of trust. Go back to that root Hippo Lemonade. We all trusted them that they were onto something new, and it turns out they weren't. So a number of investors have got badly burnt from those kind of those things. So there's a lot of learning that we need to go through, and a lot of that's around trust. I trust the AI, but I don't understand the risk of if their models failed or were wrong. And I'm not really in a place now where I can explain it well. The machine saying no to something just isn't good enough for the insurance environment. We've seen that a lot as well. And then my personal one is,
sorry, carry on.
I'm not convinced that turkeys are going to vote for Christmas.
So no, I mean, I was actually commenting on something earlier today when I'm going to attend a discussion on AI and fairness and bias, and that's part of this whole idea, as to be able to make the AI to be unbiased. You actually have to teach it how to be biased. And it's sort of almost like doesn't make sense, but somehow we're going to have to try and do that.
That's nice to where we are at the moment. It's on the data side, the consolidation of all the data points, the single version of the truth, this customer 360. That's the business driver. Let's get this sorted out so it's machine learned, AI ready, at scales that we haven't been able to touch before. And that's really, really cool. And then we've got choices. We know that our customers tend to operate in certain segments. So if they're running this just on their existing customer segments, you are going to start seeing stuff that isn't going to help you grow that much, because you're just used to, or the machines are used to working on a particular segment of the insurance market. So we know we need to kind of broaden that out a little bit to to give our customers a little bit more inspiration and a little bit more kind of ability to understand what's going on around them, rather than just their quite narrow customer base. If you think about the South African brands and who they don't all compete head to head.
That's correct.
And I think that's important for understanding that kind of bias side of it as well. And then fairness, well, that's going to get regulated, and we can predict largely what's going to happen by looking at the use of credit in insurance. I don't know if you've looked at that before.
Yes, I have. Oh, most definitely. You're going to have to build biases in to be able to make it fair. It's fascinating. I mean, it's a massive topic, but Graham, it was fascinating chatting to you, and thanks so much for all the information. It was a great discussion. I'm sure Gary would love to get a hold of the discussion to hear all your musings. So thank you very much for sharing, and I'll try and do my bit with this, and let you have something at some point to have a look at.
Have you this is the last one, right? Have you ever put in Google Trends?
Yeah.
And you can, this is fascinating, and you can type in AI and insurance, for example, into Google Trends, and then you can look at the regions. And like across the world, we're now past peak interest. Peak interest was this time last year. And now it's like you can see how people's enthusiasm has gone down a little bit when they realize the kind of complexities involved with this. As I find that fascinating. And then the second one is, just looking at regionally, which regions are going after this big style and, still looking at it. There's a lot there.
Oh, I'll have a look at that. Thanks for that insight. Yeah, I'm going to
Just
go
a little bit of a thing, Yeah, we'll just keep you
it's
updated.
probably a bit of a rabbit hole to start that, going down the rabbit hole.
All the places we can use it, but again, we're 80-90% of the way there for some of this stuff as well. The OCR, the character recognition software that can absorb data from somewhere, and then it just becomes a business rule that we can use. So this is going to be like, the icing on the cake rather than completely transforming everything. It might help us scale. It might help us, reduce the cost of a lot of these things. Even, I talked to you about Copilot. We're talking about external services to the businesses or the customers we support, but there's also the internal side of this, which is, how we can code and develop and test a lot quicker. And no one's really talking about that side of it yet either. The AI helping our coders check and validate and confirm the code they're writing, and also suggesting it and improving it. And one day probably writing it all.
Yeah, because they will be learning.
Yep.
Yeah, no, brave new world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what shall we do? Brilliant. Luckily, as you can see from my headline, I don't have many years to worry about this anymore. Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, keep
again.
in contact and let me know if you need anything else. And we've got a couple of customers that are experimenting with this now in claims, but they don't want to really talk about it yet until they see where it lands. So
I'll keep tabs as to when we can. Yeah, brilliant.
Perfect.
Enjoy your trip to South Africa when it comes up.